Okay, so we read from Revelation, going into Revelation chapter 12, that this person clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. This description indicates heavenly glory of the one who will give birth, who will rule over the nations. Well, this has to be Mary. And then they said, well, she cried out in labor pains. Now, that's not Mary, because Mary wouldn't have had labor pains with Jesus. This is not the labor pains of giving birth to Jesus. This is the labor pains that Mary had giving birth to the church. That is the tradition that has been spoken about for centuries. And so this woman has heavenly glory. The 12 stars of her victorious crown symbolize the people of God, the 12 patriarchs, the 12 apostles. And so we celebrate the 12th of December. On the 9th, we celebrated Juan Diego, and then today, on the 12th of December, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Now, really a quick summary of the story. On December the 9th, we talked about the native Mexican Juan Diego. He was going to the chapel and passed by Tepeyac Hill, where we just had a pilgrimage a few months back. Now, this was his baptized Christian name, Juan Diego, from 7 years earlier that the Franciscans had baptized him. In fact, him and his wife, you've heard me say before, were one, if not the first Christian married couples in the New World. The very first. Quite important. In the native language, Mary appeared to him there on Tepeyac Hill and said she was his mother and wanted a church there, and to tell the bishop this. Now, Juan Diego, asked if she could send someone else. And she said, no, you're the one I have chosen. It's funny because I've always thought the same thing. When I denied my vocation for years, I was like, Lord, obviously, you mean somebody else. You got the wrong number. And so Juan Diego was basically saying this, and she said, no, you're the one I've chosen. And so she told him to go back to the bishop the next day, and the bishop asked for proof. He didn't believe. And so Juan Diego, did not return for 2 days, because now his uncle became ill. And we actually visited the place, the church, over which the house of the uncle was in Mexico. Now, Juan Diego went to find a priest, and he tried to go another route around the hill. He tried to evade Mary, but she called out to him. She saw him. And so he was busted. But anyway, she said to go to the top of the hill and cut the flowers there and to bring them to her. Now, it was freezing at that time, and these kind of flowers, of roses actually, were not native to Mexico. But he did as she said. So the uncle at that exact time was cured and told Juan that he had met a woman clothed in light. And so this is what we start to see the story unfold. Now let's even go back to the name, Guadalupe. There's a couple theories on that name. It may have meant Coatlalupe, very similar sounding, which means one who treads on snakes. Coatlalupe. Now, or it could have referred to Our Lady of Guadalupe in Spain, where Cortez was from, the conquistador that helped conquer the Aztec Empire. But either way, within just 6 years, 6 to 9 million Aztecs had converted to Catholicism, and have never been anything like this. And so this image, very much miraculous, has survived smoke from fires and candles, water from floods, even a bomb in 1921. It didn't damage it. Now, the Basilica, which we visited down in Mexico City, is the most visited Catholic site in the world and the third most sacred site in the world, behind some of the Muslim sites. But anyway, in 1977, just around the time of the Shroud as well, the tilma was examined using infrared photography, this digital enhancement. And the tilma shows no sketching or any sign of outline that would be drawn on it to permit an artist to paint it. So you can see on this image here, this one's a little faint, but you can still see the capture of the story. So I'm going to reference a few things. On here. Again, the image is a little bit faint, but I think you can see it. Now, first of all, let's just start with the inexplicable fact of how long it's lasted. This was made out of cactus, and really it would have been about 30 years max life. It is now 500 years old, almost. And this has really the first thing that I think needs to be explained, which can't be. Now, there are some things that are questionable about it. First of all, the bishop never really wrote about it, nor was this mentioned until the 17th century, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. The stars were added, the folds were added, the moon and the angel. The crown was removed. So the original artwork, though, never cracked or flaked. While these later editions, like the gold leaf, the silver plating, and the moon, they began to wear, flake. They became deteriorated. That right there tells you something, because the original part of the painting never flaked or whatever. And so the icon under infrared light shows portions of the face, the hands, the robe, and the mantle had not been, there's no brush strokes. It had all been created in one step. There was no sketches, there was no corrections, there's no brush strokes. Now the image itself we saw in Mexico is 6.5 by 3.5 feet. But the back side is very rough, but the front side is like silk, and there's no paint on the image. The color that makes it actually hovers a micron, a couple microns above the fiber of the tilma. It's not even into it, which is amazing. And the pigments, the color, doesn't match anything on our color spectrum. The pigments have no known source. There's no match. And so the eyes, the images that they can see in the eyes, are of all those who were present when the tilma was revealed before the bishop in 1531. And so if you look up into the eye, they can see that scene of who was present during this event. Now look at Mary here on this image. Now she's standing in front of the sun. She basically, she blots out the sun. She's standing on the moon, and she carries stars on her cloak. All important. She also wears blue, this bluish tint, this turquoise, which is somebody important. It's a color from heaven. The stars, there's 22 on the right, 26 on the left, and they show constellations. The constellation that was in the sky on December the 12th, 1531. That's incredible. Amazing. December 12th, 1531, they know the pattern of the stars that were in the constellation, in the stars that day, that night. And then Brother Mark found something interesting a few years ago, and my talk is still online on this, that a musical composer, one of the most famous in Mexico, took the positions of the stars. So if you turn the tilma sideways, you have the position of the stars, and they map them out, and they actually, if you put them to a scale, they actually are positions like musical notes that this composer then played. And the musical notes, if you want to see this on our talk that I put up a couple years ago on Guadalupe, is the most angelic and most, if you were to ever imagine music from heaven, this is what that music sounded like. It's like nothing you've ever heard before. It's quite amazing. It really is. And so this is so significant with the stars, but let's keep going. Our Lady is blocking out the sun. Now, why? Because the sun is behind her, because she's more important than the sun. She's in front of the sun, and she's brighter than the sun. Now, we're talking about S-U-N. Why is that important? Because their god was the sun god, the god of the sun. And so she's saying, hey, listen, there's something greater here than all your gods. And so her hands are joined in prayer of supplication, which shows she's not a goddess. It shows that there is someone greater than her that she's praying to. That's important. And so her hair is down. And so this meant that she was a virgin, but she has a black ribbon on her waist indicating she's pregnant. So how could she be a virgin, but also be pregnant? That's the mystery of the gospel. The tilma shows Mary as the God-bearer, pregnant with the real Son, not S-U-N, but S-O-N. And so now she's right before Christmas, ready to give birth. 2 weeks, and we will have Christmas. And so this is why she's about life. Now known as the Empress of Latin America and the protectress of unborn children. That's what John Paul stated. And then finally, to me, the most compelling thing of all here is the angel down below has eagle's wings. That's very important. So if you can see on the image, there's on the angel, he has wings, and these are eagle's wings. Now, that's funny because the name of Juan Diego in his native language actually means eagle's wings, to fly. So anyway, this eagle's wings, this was the bird that could fly the highest, and they would take hearts of humans sacrificed, and they would put them, give them to the eagle, who would fly up with the human heart covered in consecrated blood. And the eagle would fly this up to the gods to sustain the gods. So they kept sacrificing thousands of people. In one event, 250,000 people were sacrificed. And they would rip the hearts out, give them to the eagles. They would fly up with the human heart and consecrated blood to feed and sustain the gods. And the eagle carried in its claws this heart, these hearts, and this consecrated blood. Blood means life of those sacrificed. So here Mary comes, and she says, no. She says, no. She says, I will bring you the true body and blood, the true heart and the consecrated blood to feed you in the Eucharist. You don't feed the pagan gods. The one true God feeds you. And so Mary brings the body and blood, the heart and the consecrated blood, to feed us in the Eucharist. This is the meaning. You are not to feed the gods, she said, with blood of the hearts of victims on a sacrificial stone. Rather, it is my Son, Jesus Christ, who offers himself to you as food. As typical, we had it backwards. And this is what Our Lady is telling us. And you know what? Every Eucharistic miracle that has been tested, of approved ones, shows human heart tissue in the host. Blood and human heart tissue. What did they give to the eagles? Blood and human heart tissue to feed these pagan gods. Now Mary comes down and says, you got this reversed. Not you are to be feeding the pagan gods, but the one true God will give you his heart, his blood, consecrated to feed you in the Eucharist. That's what's on this image. That is amazing. And so we see in here such an important message, a symbol, not just symbolism, but a real meaning. And it unites us. The Eucharist unites us, no matter what race or creed or color. In fact, even her skin, so she was a mestizo, right? This is neither Spaniard nor Aztec, but both races. She combines, she unites. And this is what the Eucharist does. It's communion. That's the very meaning of the word. And so we have a very significant message here, a very significant image here. And so this brings us to such an important part and aspect of what Mary's role is, to bring us her Son to Jesus through Mary.